This is Mac Boland from IllinoisMatMen.com. I'm going to be doing a recap of the 2014-2015 Illinois wrestling season. Now, last week, Flow Wrestling just released their final rankings for the season, and although most of the regular high school seasons have ended months ago, organizations like Intermat and Flow Wrestling do rankings based on a lot of the postseason wrestling tournaments, such as the Folkstyle Nationals. Now, before I get started, I want to give a shout out to Shane Morgan, Hall of Fame inductee, referee Shane Morgan. Congratulations. And in the future, we'll be expecting you to blow a lot less calls. So, starting in Class A, Dakota was the preseason number one and pretty much breezed through the Class A season. Dakota had two standouts. J.J. Wolf won his second Class A state championship. Two lone losses on the year to Montini's Vince Turk and Oak Park River Forest Larry Early. Now, Carver James went on to win his third straight state championship. Impressive because he missed almost the entire season. Came back at the end of the season and thoroughly dominated a 170-pound weight class, which, in my opinion, was the deepest weight class by far in Class A tournament. Now, on to the dual team championship. Again, Dakota went straight through, won their third straight Class A dual team state championship. Now, earlier in the year, they were tested by Byron in a fairly close dual meet, 40-36 or 35. Unfortunately, both the number 2 and number 3 ranked teams in Class A were, you guessed it, in the same regional with Dakota, and that would be Byron and Lena Winslow. Now, in Class 3A, we used to complain about, Sandburg and Marist being in the same regional, but having all three of your best teams in the same regional in Class A, IHSA, you gotta fix this.
You were serious about that?
So, on to Class 2A. Now, once again, Izzy's boys brought it. Broncos went on to their 8th straight Class 2A dual team state title, and of course dominated the individual state tournament as well. Montini won their first Class 2A title under the old 2-class system and have won every single Class 2A state championship since going to the 3-class system. Now, Montini finishes the season also with a top 20 ranking on the national level. Had high finishes in the Cheesehead, at the Ironman, 3rd at the Rex Whitlatch tournament. There's standout individuals who, at one time or another, were also ranked nationally. At 106, Wood, 132, Duncan, 145, Turk, 152, 160, Fortuna, at 182, Montalvo, and at heavyweight, Michael Johnson. Johnson spent most of the year off the mat, came back in time, wrestled really well, got a nice win over Hector Coronado from Clovis in that dual meet, and got his elusive state championship. He'll be heading to Yale to play football. Turk won his second straight state title. He'll be heading to Iowa. Duncan won an extremely tough weight class at 132 pounds. Didn't have a really good Ironman tournament. Was at 126, definitely too big for that weight. Moved up to 132. Wrestled great. Has a win during the season over Class 3A state champion Austin O'Connor. And then went on to win a Class 2A title in a pretty exciting match against Sutton from Richmond Burton. Now, the guy, though, out of this group that I think really had the standout season was Fortuna.
Use the Force, Luke.
Now last year, Class 2A, Fortuna was runner-up to Meriwether from Washington in an overtime match. Well, he didn't have a particularly good Ironman tournament, didn't place. After that, he went on to a runner-up finish to Oak Park River Forest's Matt Rundle, who went on to win the Class 3A state championship at the Rex Whitlatch. However, avenged that loss in the dual meet when Montini met Oak Park River Forest. Also in a dual meet, Fortuna beat Meriwether, and then went on to wrestle and win 152-pound Class 2A state championship. Great job, Luke. Montalvo won another state championship. He'll be headed to University of Illinois. Washington, 3 state champs, including a 4-timer, Elijah Oliver, 3-time Tennessee state champ, came to Washington, won an Illinois state title. Randy Meriwether, as mentioned before, won his 2nd straight state championship this year at 160 pounds. And Jacob Warner, 170. Warner came within a hair of placing at the Ironman. And again, this was Washington's first year at the Ironman. They took a little bit of a beating. They'll be back. At 195 pounds, Class 2A individual state championship. In my opinion, the 2 best 195-pounders in the state, both nationally ranked, squared off in the finals. Andrew Marsden coming out on top of Eric Schultz in a thrilling match. Marsden winning his 2nd straight for Crystal Lake Central. Shout out to Danny Swan too. Geneseo, 3-time champ, another wild match. Great win over Butler from Rockford Boylan. Overtime match, gets his 3rd state championship. Now, in the dual team championship, Montini has dominated in the past. They still won. This year, still only lost 2 dual meets. One to Oak Park River Forest, ranked number 1 in the country, and one to Clovis, California, ranked number 2 in the country. Number 5 in the country, excuse me. Now, having said that, a lot of these 2A schools started to close the gap. Washington, runner-up in dual team state, only lost to Montini both times by around 7 points. Washington, in turn, had very close dual meets against Oak Forest and against Geneseo. Now, the way the seeding turned out, Geneseo, unfortunately, made the Elite 8. Tough first-round match, lost Washington, they're out. Washington went to the finals, close match, gave Montini everything they could handle, and finished 2nd. Oak Forest advanced, got beat, went to the semifinals, defeated Crystal Lake Central. They finished 3rd in state. Again, Montini, great tournament team. Not quite the depth you've seen from Montini's teams in the past, but Montini's Montini, and they'll be right back in the thick of it next year. Be interesting to see how Washington looks next year as well.
Try it, Shag. Lift and spur, dude. Act like you're going somewhere now. Act like you're going somewhere. Stay in the middle. Stay in the middle. Hell, you ain't hurt. You just got farted off.
And Class 3A, just like in Class 1A and Class 2A, the preseason number 1 ranked team, Oak Park River Forest, went ahead, ran the table, went on to win the Class 3A state championship. In the process, the Huskies rose all the way to number 1 in the country. Now, the season for the Huskies is kind of a roller coaster ride. Started off at the Ironman, kind of a disappointing 3rd place finish, being without 2 of their key starters. Stallings at 220 pounds, who had a pretty rough season, in and out of the lineup. And then Larry Early, 145 pounds, potential finalist at the Ironman, did go on to a runner-up finish in individual state. Now, would have been very tough for the Huskies to repeat last year's performance of 10 All-Staters, 5 finalists, and 4 champions. They did, however, finish with 7 All-Americans, still had 5 finalists, 2 champions, 2 other All-Staters, with a 3rd place finish by Gabe Townsell and a 4th place finish by Jamie Hernandez. Again, Rundle and White winning championships. Oak Park River Forest, as I mentioned, took third in the Ironman, went on to win the Rex Whitlatch, and then went into the Clash. And finally, when they went into the Clash, they went in with a full team.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Now at the Clash, the Huskies turned an absolutely dominating performance, beating two nationally ranked teams in Apple Valley and Bettendorf, and then meeting Carl Sandburg in the finals, and with their full team on the mat against Carl Sandburg, Oak Park River Forest won 59-6. The lone two wins for the Eagles were Yates at 126 and Brucky at 182. And finally had a healthy Alan Stallings in the lineup. Stallings at 220 pounds. In the 4 matches he wrestled, 3 pins and a major decision. Now, speaking of Carl Sandburg, had kind of a surprising season in the sense at the beginning of the season they weren't nationally ranked and came in under the radar on the national scene. Took second at the Clash, won a fantastic dual meet over St. Michael Albertsville of Minnesota, a team that beat them in the championship brackets a few years ago. This year, the Eagles come down to the last match, win it, get into the championship bracket, beat Bettendorf, beat Apple Valley, get all the way to the finals of Oak Park River Forest. They also finished second at Rex Whitlatch and won the Southwest Suburban Conference Championship, which Southwest Suburban Conference, last 2 years in a row, toughest wrestling conference in the state. Next year ought to be interesting with the addition of Marmion Academy and Montini to the Chicago Catholic League. Sandburg had a state championship by Rudy Yates, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. The other team that had a surprisingly really good season was Glenbard North. Again, Panthers started the season way under the radar. They did win the Moore Prettyman, the Barrington tournament, finished runner-up at the Dvorak, and went on to the Clash. Lost a really, really close dual meet to Apple Valley, came down to the last match, went on to win the third bracket at the Clash. Early in the season, Glenbard North did have a dual meet victory over Carl Sandburg. Ended up with an individual state champion at 113 pounds in Austin Gomez. Gomez avenging a sectional final loss to Jason Rennery of Oak Park River Forest. Now, injuries played a huge part of this season in Class 3A. Not only with the Huskies, but even more so with two pretty good teams, Rockton Hononegah and Marmion Academy. Rockton Hononegah was never really able to field a full lineup during the season, and even some of their top guys, when they were in the lineup, were banged up. Fernie Silva last year, runner-up at state, never really came back this year at 100%. Marmion Academy wins Dvorak, somewhat of a Pyrrhic victory because in the process they lose 3 starters, 2 never came back. Lucas Warren never made it out on the mat, and that's Lucas Warren, who the year before finished third at 220 pounds. However, the core of that team, and that's a group that will be returning next year, AJ Jaffe, Trace Corello, Riley DeMoss, and Nathan Traxler, all managed to place at state. Traxler winning a state championship, DeMoss winning a state championship. Great story there. Riley DeMoss missed all of the previous season due to a hip injury, came back this year, and went all the way to win the state finals, 170 pounds. Great job. Nathan Traxler, of all the guys at Marmion Academy, probably had the best season and probably had one of the best seasons of any wrestler in Illinois. Finished 4th in the Ironman and probably one of the toughest weight classes in that tournament at 182 pounds. Had a win over Xavier Montalvo earlier in the season. Went on to win a state championship and going for a second one next year. Traxler finishing top 10 in the nation at that weight class. Now, going on to the individual state tournament, as mentioned before, a lot of the focus was on Oak Park River Forest. But if you want to talk about the drama of an individual matchup, the very first one of the night, you couldn't beat. Chris Williams going for his 4th state title. Rudy Yates, and I mean a much improved Rudy Yates. A Rudy Yates who was already a state champ and a state placer last year, already a pretty good wrestler, came into the season not even in the national ranking. Upset number 1, well, you can say it was an upset, but beat Mitchell McKee from St. Michael Albertville at the Clash. Went on, missed the Southwest Suburban Conference Championship with some kind of a viral infection. Hit the state series, pretty much went right through the weight class. Meets Chris Williams in the finals, and pretty convincing win. Jumps all the way up to the number 3 ranking in the country, and I would really like to see him take on number 2 and number 1, particularly number 1 Chad Red from Indiana. That would be a great match. Now going on to dual team state. No seeding. Things were a little jostled around as usual. You have the Carl Sandburg and Marist in the same regional. Sandburg wins the regional. Going into dual team state, had some pretty interesting matchups here. 2 teams that made the Elite 8. You don't normally hear from Prospect. And then Deerfield. Deerfield, great program, came out of nowhere, had their first state champion in I don't know how many years last year in Colton Emmerich, and made it to the Elite 8. Had a thrilling match with Lockport. Lockport Southwest Suburban Conference runner-up, and a perennial powerhouse. I mean, Lockport, great program. Deerfield gave them everything they could handle. Came down to the last match. And unfortunately, if you're a Deerfield fan, they lost. Were eliminated. Lincoln Way Central and Marmion Academy, also 2 really good programs. Marmion Academy caught Oak Park River Forest first round. Oak Park River Forest beat them for the 2nd straight time. Also interesting to note, Oak Park River Forest has wins in dual meet competition over both Montini Catholic, your 2A champ, and Dakota, beating Dakota 55-12 in a dual meet, your Class A champion. Had a rematch in the semifinals between Carl Sandburg and Glenbard North. This time, the Eagles prevail, move on to the finals. Once again, Oak Park River Forest beats Carl Sandburg, wins their 2nd straight dual team state championship, and then Glenbard North would go on to beat Lockport. Interesting to note, in the Oak Park Lockport duel, Oak Park River Forest Husky backup Bobby Campos, who as a freshman at 106 pounds was a state qualifier, been out of the lineup for 2 years, wrestled as a backup, beat 9-2 state placer Asaf from Lockport. So let's take a look now at the national scene.
Actually, I'd like to join you, but I have class tonight.
How about tomorrow night?
I have class then, too.
I'll tell you what then. Why don't you call me sometime when you have no class?
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the national scene. Before I do that, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the Cougars from Clovis, California. Clovis came all the way to Illinois, wrestled on a Friday and Saturday in 2 super quads. They went 5-1 in the 2 days. Of course, their lone loss to Oak Park River Forest High School, and put on a pretty impressive performance, culminating in the Sandburg Super Duels and that showdown between Oak Park River Forest, which I believe the final score was 38-18. Oak Park forfeiting at 2:20, still managing to win the duel. Montini gave them a pretty good run too. They beat Sandburg in what was a close duel. The final score, because Sandburg didn't win that many matches, looked lopsided, but most of the matches were very closely contested. But again, great team, and really, I know Illinois wrestling fans really appreciated them coming all the way out here. Now, just looking at some of the national rankings, Illinois finished the season with 3 #1 ranked wrestlers on Intermat. Austin Gomez, 113 pounds. Isaiah White, 152 pounds. And Michael Johnson Jr. at 285. White, of course, having a phenomenal year. Undefeated, state champ, won the Ironman, first Ironman champ for Oak Park. Also cracked into the top 10 in the pound-for-pound rankings nationally. Would be interesting to note that even though they didn't compete in the state series, both Tony Madrigal at 106 pounds and Kamal Bey at 170 pounds remain nationally ranked on Flow rankings. Anthony Madrigal basically blew weight at regionals, but during the season had only a few losses. He went 1-1 against Montini's Rail Wood. He lost to Cato Levis at the Ironman, went on to finish third in the Ironman, and has a win over 106-pound Class 3A state champ McGee. Kamal Bey, 2 losses on the whole season to the 2 top-ranked 170-pounders in the country. Finished second at the Ironman. Again, lost there in the finals to Anthony Valencia. Valencia headed to Arizona State University. And his other loss to #1 and #1 pound-for-pound Mark Hall from Apple Valley at the Clash. Illinois finished with 3 top 5 113-pounders. As mentioned, Gomez, Jason Renneria, and Jabari Moody. Finishing the season in the national rankings for teams, Oak Park River Forest, #1, and Carl Sandburg, Montini Catholic, Marmion Academy, and Glenbard North, all finishing in the top 50 nationally. Now there's been a lot of debate, as there always is during the season. Who's #1? What do you base it on? Oak Park River Forest finished third at the Ironman, went on to win the Clash. At the same time, St. Paris Graham won the Ironman, but then went on to lose to Blair Academy in a dual meet head-to-head. Blair went on to lose in a dual meet head-to-head to Wyoming Seminary. Oak Park finished the season undefeated in dual meets and went on to win the Class 3A championship in Illinois. Again, some felt they should have had a better individual state tournament. Looking at the 3 major rankings, Oak Park, 2 out of 3 #1 would be a consensus #1, but 1 ranker on Intermat, Josh, for some reason leapfrogged St. Paris Graham because St. Paris Graham had a great individual tournament in the 2nd biggest class in Ohio, and he felt Oak Park River Forest didn't do as well winning theirs. Anyway, breaking down the 3 rankings. Flow Wrestling has Oak Park 1, Blair 2, Wyoming Sem 3, St. Paris Graham 4, Clovis 5th. Intermat has St. Paris Graham 1, Oak Park River Forest 2nd, Blair 3rd, Wyoming Sem 4th, Clovis 5th. And the open mat has Oak Park River Forest 1st, St. Paris Graham 2nd, Blair 3rd, Wyoming Sem 4th, Clovis 5th. So, in order to determine an overall national champ, basically average the points, the scores from all of these rankings, and you come out with Oak Park River Forest #1, 1.3 average, St. Paris Graham #2, 2.3 average, Blair Academy 2.6 average, Wyoming Sem 3.6 average, and Clovis 5th across the board. Now, having said that, looking at St. Paris Graham, as good a tournament team as they are, I honestly think Clovis, make no mistake, 5th across the board, had 6 finalists in the California State Championship. Justin Mejia at 113, and then there are 5 final weight classes. In a dual meet, I would pick Clovis to beat St. Paris Graham based particularly on the strength of those last 5 weights, plus they have a really good 138-pounder and a pretty good 145-pounder. Now, Paris Graham would probably get bonus points at some of the weights that are stronger, like 160 with Marinelli, ranked #1 in the country. The Moore and Mejia matchup at 113 pounds would be a pretty good one. But overall, in a dual meet, I like Clovis against Paris Graham. Now again, having said that, you know, opinions are like everybody's got one and they all stink. Anyway, overall, Oak Park River Forest, #1 in the country. Huge shout out to the Huskies and the Husky Wrestling family. Whoa. Oops. Anyway, that's just about going to wrap it up. On a little bit of a serious note, I want to give prayers out to Michael Wolf, former Oak Park River Forest high school wrestler and member of the Husky Wrestling family. Midshipman at Annapolis, suffered a pretty nasty training accident. He's recovering. So again, Michael, get better. Love you, brother, and hopefully one day I'll be saying hello to Ensign Wolf. And again, this is Mac Boland, IllinoisMatMen.com, wrapping up the 2014-2015 Illinois High School Wrestling season. As always, this is brought to you by Fellowship of Christian Wrestling Athletes.org and GEI Wrestling Apparel. You want it? Go earn it.